A man gives twice the amount of money as required for marriage to a woman. V'amarla, and he says to her, the achas niskad shili. This silver coin I'm using to marry you. Hayom, as of now. Uba achas, this other coin, I'm adding the words put in escrow. The hiskadshili, and you can use them. That will be the second marriage. That if I divorce you, that second monetary gift that you're accepting will be another marriage. So the sequence would be, he gives her money, she becomes his wife, he divorces her, ois wife, she takes that coin which she had received earlier and is his wife again. So their argument is it's the same as the saplings, that he's re-koina her. And that answer, so you use the saplings to answer, yes, this second marriage is a marriage. That's the point. So by accepting both coins at the beginning, when she is released, she's automatically reclaimed, just like the trees. So at that moment, Reb Yirmiyah wakes up. Itar Bahu Reb Yirmiyah. Reb Yirmiyah wakes up and he's heard their discussion sort of while he was dozing. V'yomelahu, he says to them, Maika midamatun pada'anhu lifda'um acherim. Why are you telling me that this is comparable to Ben Pada? You know what this is comparable to? This is comparable to if Avrami comes along and he is Paida the trees. So now he transfers the Kedusha of the trees onto money. And even though they're still in Ruvain's backyard, Avrami now acquires ownership of them. And even if Avrami sells them back to Ruvain, by Avrami acquiring ownership, they became Chulin again. Okay, so he says, your example isn't right. The guy isn't paid it himself. Somebody else is paid it, and it went out of his rishus for a brief period of time until he bought them back. Okay? Here's what Rabbi Yochanan says. If Padan hu chazeres likadshos, if Ruvain is paid the saplings, then they're Ruvain's again, and they become kodesh again because Ruvain said they're kodesh till they're chopped down. Padun acherim, if somebody else is paid them, ein chazeres likadushos, they do not resume their status as belonging to Hektish. The Isha kipida uha cherim damya. Now, when a woman is given a get, which of the two situations is it more analogous to? According to Rav Yochanan, and this is a very good argument, she is in the husband's rishus when she takes the money initially. As soon as he gives her the divorce, whose rishus is she in? Her own. So that's a change of, quote, ownership, unquote. And then if he wants to remarry her, she has to give rishus all over again. You have to go through the whole process. It's not like a restoration of what was, because the bailus change. So if you want to compare it to the saplings, you have to compare it to the case of some third party being paid to the saplings, in which case the Kedusha would disappear. And in case you think that that's only Reb Yirmiyah quoting Rabbi Yochanan. The fact of the matter is, if we read on, Itmer Nami, others also say, Omer Rav Ami, Omer Rav Yochanan. Rav Ami has a similar Messiah. Lo shana ella lipada'an hu. If Reuven, in my example, is paida the saplings, they restore the kedusha because they never changed rishus, except from him to hekdesh. Avo, pada'o macherim ein chazeres likedushas. So if a third party comes and is paida them, that would remove the kedusha, and this informs the issue earlier. What happens? Can kedusha simply vanish from? And this is kedusha, so it didn't really vanish because it's kedusha's domim, and it was transferred to the money, and the money goes to hektish. So it doesn't answer that question, but it does answer Rav Yoshaya's question. Okay. And the answer there would be no. According to Rav Oshaya, the woman is not remarried despite her taking and even spending both coins. Hanayder mi yordei hayam. All right, now we're getting into an area where in at the time the Mishnayos were composed or collated, there were idiomatic expressions that everybody understood what they mean. And if you made a neder using the words of the expression that everybody understands, the Mishnah is telling us the idiom applies. So even though the technical meaning of the words may not be accurate, everybody knows what you're talking about. So if I were to say, I don't know, in English, if I were to say sports fans, everybody knows what that means. It doesn't mean a thing that blows cool air on a sport. The word has more than one meaning, but you interpret it as to what it means. So they're going to grapple now in the next couple of Mishnahs with these kinds of idioms and how do they apply to Nedarim. Hanayder miyordei hayam. If somebody says, I make a neder that I will have no benefit from seafarers, from people who go to sea. Now, that could mean sailors. That could also mean someone who takes a cruise. But the idiom means sailors, okay? And more than that, the idiom means people who go on relatively long journeys. They take a boat to Rome. They take a boat to Spain. It doesn't mean a ferry driver who goes back and forth across a river. We'll see that in a minute. So if I make a vow, I'll have nothing to do with seafarers, with people who make a living by going to sea. Mutter v'yashvei hayavasha. I have not ushered people who live on dry land, and therefore I can't buy fish from the seafarer, but I could buy the fish from Reuven's fish shop. Okay? Now, what if I say, Meyashvei hayavasha? I make a neder, I'll have nothing to do with people who live on land. Okay? Asr miyardei hayam. That would also prohibit sailors, because eventually sailors come back to port and get off the ship and go home to their wife and kids, and they live on land as well. Okay, sheyardei hayam b'chlal yoshvei hayavasha, because sailors, are included in the general klal of people who live on land. Now we get a little bit tricky, okay? Lo ke'elu shaholchin me'akov le'yafa. The Mishnah literally means not like people who sail short distances, a day trip or like a ferry boat from two ports that are relatively close to one another. Ella, b'mi shedarcho leporesh, but rather to people who their nature is to make a distance, to go on a longer trip. But that's a little ambiguous. So the Gemara immediately grapples with what this ako tiyafa means. Rav Pada v'Rav Acha v'Reita Rav Ika have an argument. Chad masnei aresha. Some say the phrase "not like the local travelers." I'm using that instead of repeating over and over ako tiyafa. Okay, so when he says his opinion is when you say, I will have nothing to do with seafarers, you could buy fish from the ferry boat between Akka and Jaffa. Okay, Chad Masnei Seifa, but one puts it on the Seifa. Okay, and therefore you would not, that links it to those who like to separate from land. You could travel on land from Jaffa to Akko, but these guys rather go by boat. Man the Tanya Resha Masnei Hachi, he learns it like this. Hayared miyardei hayam. If I make a netter not to have anything to do with sailors, mutter b'yoshvei yavasha, I'm allowed to deal with people who live on land. Ha b'yardei hayam aser, but seafarers are forbidden to me. Lo ke'elu, not like the ferry guys. Hahochin me'akav liyafa. Because they go home every single night to their family. They're not considered sailors. Ella, Lemi, Shadarcha, and Leforesh, with they are unlike those who go on long sea journeys. Okay? Uman de masnei aseifa masnei hachi, but the one who learns the ferry boat to the seifa holds like this. Hayered miyashvei yavasha aser biyardei hayam. If I make a neder that I will have nothing to do with land dwellers, I will only buy my food from seafarers, for example, then loke elu ha'holchin me'akav lev bilvad, it would include my net. I would be able to buy from not be able to buy from even the ferry boat guys. Ella afilu b'misha darchu leparesh. I would also not be able to buy from a guy who chooses to have little or nothing to do with land, like a guy who lives on a houseboat. Howil v'tafo yavasha salik, because eventually he gets off the boat and he's on land. He still maintains an association with land. Okay, now another idiom. And again, I would repeat that these idioms only work then. If you were to make this netter today, you would have to ask a shaila what you meant, and they would have to do a survey of what the term means to Hebrew-speaking people today, and that's how the netter would work. But then Hebrew-speaking people meant something specific by various phrases. Haneider miyoirei hachama. You make a netter, you'll have nothing to do with people who, quote, see the sun. Aser af besumen. That would prohibit you from having anything to do with a blind person as well. Shelo niskaven ze ela lemi shahachama roe oson. Because idiomatically, the phrase, those who see the sun, was understood to mean people upon whom the sun shines. Okay, so that would include blind people as well. Okay, my timer, what's the rationale? Midloka Amar min Hayroin. He did not say, I will have nothing to do with people who can see. He associated it with the sun. Okay, la afuke. So what does this mean? To say I won't have anything to do with things the sun shines on, or that, okay, what could that mean? So for example, it would mean you could not eat vegetable products, maybe hydroponically grown indoors, but they didn't have that then. Okay, so therefore it meant you couldn't eat grain or fruit. It also meant you couldn't eat cattle because the sun shines on a cow. So how you going to live? It would exclude fish because fish are underwater. The sun doesn't directly shine on them. And you could eat veal because in those days, veal was taken from a pregnant cow was shechted, and the baby was taken out and was butchered and sold as meat. So since the fetus was never shot, the sun never shined on it, you would have a restricted diet. You could eat fish and seaweed as your vegetation, and you could eat veal. Okay? Next. And what? What, again, tried to explain this initially. What the Mishnah is saying, if you make a bizarre vow, we have to look at how people use that term, and that's what it would include. Now, you have to realize off the top, nobody is supposed to make vows at all. All these are b'di'evets. And all these Mishnayos are telling us is you cannot wiggle out of your neder by trying to narrow it, by saying, well, but Reuven is blind. I can eat at his house. No, you have to look at how other people think of that phrase, and you're locked into the common understanding. That's all these Mishnayos are trying to say. Another one. You didn't like that one, you're going to hate this one. Hayored mishachayre harosh. I make a neder, I'll have nothing to do with people with black or dark brown hair. Okay? So what does that mean? Aser bekarchen, you also would not be able to have anything to do with someone who's completely bald. Ubale sevos, or people who are very old and whose hair is white. You would have nothing to do with them either if they're male. Umuter benashim bekatanim. But you could interrelate with, buy, get food from, benefit from in any way, except one, obviously, women and little kids. Okay, because the idiom is used for males. It's not used for females. Okay. She'ein nikroyin sheichrei harosh. We do not call dark-haired people ella anashim. Everybody understands that idiom refers to males. Okay. My timer. Why does that idiom mean males? Midloka Amar mibale seor, because he did not say people with hair. If he had said people with hair, it would include a woman. It might exclude a bald guy. And if a guy has only a little hair, you could say Rova Karuba, Ruba Ula, and you could eat it somebody who is just a little fringe of dark hair. I'm not a posek. That's just my own thought. Okay. So mutter benashim lebekatanim, but you can benefit from women and kids. She'en nikroin shechayre roish el anashim. That women and children are not considered haired people. Now the Mishnah wants to know why not. Dark, well, no, but I mean specifically leaving out dark because we said already gray counts, right? So my timer, why was this idiom understood to mean only males? Anashim, when it comes to men, Zimnin, Demekasai, Reshayu, Uzimnan, Demegaloi, Reshayu. Sometimes men wear a hat and cover their hair completely, and sometimes they only wear a little yarmulke and do not cover their hair completely. So they can be, so you can look at a man and say he's a hairy guy. Aval nashim li'olam mikasu, but women always have all their hair covered. That's a din midiraisa, according to most poskim. The katanim li'olam megalo, and children never cover their hair. Little kid goes to the hat store and gets his kaiva with his bar mitzvah. Prior to that, he doesn't wear a hat. That's how you know who's a bar mitzvah and who isn't, if you can get him to a minyan. So that's why, and the rove of men have dark hair. So the idiom is dark-haired people mean men. Okay, and that's the end of that. Another one. This one gets trickier. Haneder min hayelodim. I make a neder, and all right. Yelodim is related to people or things that come from a womb. Okay? And the word Yelodim, we're going to have a discussion. Does it mean future tense? Does it mean past tense? Okay? So, Hanoider min hayelodim, someone who makes a neder relating to forbidding himself from Yelodim, mutter banolodim, he may eat things or deal with people who are born after he makes the neder. So the Mishnah assumes at this point that it means I will have nothing to do with anyone or anything that is already born. Okay? Aser min hayelodim. It's forbidden to have anything to do with anyone or anything that was already born. That's the Chachamim. Rabbi Meir matir af b'yelodim. He would allow you to deal with persons or things that were already born. So you could make this neder according to Rebbe Meir and then buy an aged steak. Okay? The Chachamim Amrim, and the Chachamim reply that there's another layer of meaning here. Lo niskaven ze ela lemi shedarcho vehiv laid. That what we're talking about here, we're not going to argue so much future, past. We're talking about anything that comes from a womb. He is ussering on himself. So he could eat chicken, he could eat fish, he could eat vegetables. They don't come from wombs. But he couldn't interrelate with persons, or he could not eat mammals. Okay? L'Rebbe Meir lo miboi nolodim. Rabbi Meir says that you do not even have to talk about the future because he permits already things that were already born. So exactly who is he prohibiting? How does he apply the neder? So they explain that this is a missing words Mishnah. Chasrei mechsera hachi katani. This Mishnah is missing phrases, and here's how you have to learn it. Haneider minha yeladim mutter b'nolodim. If you make a neder on yeladim, you're allowed to benefit from persons or mammals that may be born from the moment after you make the neder. Min hanoladim aser biyelodim. But if he makes the iser naladim, he's forbidden to have anything to do with any person or critter that was already born from a womb. Reb Meir Omer af hanoider min hanoladim. If he makes the neder on the naladim, mutter biyaladim, he can have nothing to. He may benefit from things that are already born, but not from the future. So he learns it past, not future. The Tanakama learns it future, not past. Ki heichi the neider min hayeloidim mutter b'nolodim, just as one who uses the word yeladim is permitted, according to Reb Meir, the Tanakama is permitted to things that will be born in the future. Okay. Now, Omerle Rapapa Labaya, he challenges, he asks the following questions. Lememra de nolodim de misyaldon mashma. What you're telling me is that Reb Meir is using only the past as permitted, but the future is not permitted? Elamiyata. If that's the case, what do you do with Ephraim and Menashe? The Torah then uses, quote, the wrong word, unquote. Elamiyata. So now, Shnei banecha hanolodim lecha be'eretz Mitzrayim, the two boys that were already born to you in Egypt, and it uses the lashon is ha-no-lodim. So that's the wrong, God used the wrong word according to Reb Meir. Hachinami de is yaldanhu. So do we want to say that if that means the past, then Reb Meir says that's okay. Then he says the future also is okay. So then he doesn't say anything. And Ephraim and Menashe were already born. So you can't tell me that it means the future. So the problem is we can't figure out how to interpret this word. Okay? Elamai. So what do we have to say this word? If it can't mean past and it can't mean future, what could it mean? Elamai yalidu mashma. It has to mean already born. Elamiyata dixiv hine bein neilad lebeis David Oshayahu shmai. A son nolad, which we just tried to figure out means past, was born to the house of David. Okay, hachinami dahave. So there, you're going to tell me it means was born? The diktuk would indicate, according to our argument, that it means past tense. Ha'adayin Menashe loba. His Menashe comes from the house of David, and he was the grandfather of Ushiah. So it can't pass. So then how does the pasuk work? So now we're going to come up with the end Mishnah of the Mishnah. Ela mashma hachi umashma hachi. So it could mean, depending on how you use it, past, and it could mean future. And b'nedarim hoylech acher lashon b'nei adam. When it comes to interpreting nedarim, we interpret it the way the common person would understand the word if you used it in conversation. Okay? Now, the Mishnah, and it does not tell us because usages change. So it gives us this general rule, and it doesn't determine definitively what noladim mean. Okay? The rabbis argue differently. Lo niskaven ze elami shedarchu hiv lo'ed. They interpreted entities that come from a womb. So if you make a vow on Naladim, you don't come into past and future, you come into how did that thing get here? So you're talking vegetation, that didn't come from a womb. You can eat bread. You can eat cornflakes. What? Nolad. The vlad, the word, the shoresh of the word, vlad, nolad, all those words, means something that comes from a womb. So a child is a yeled, he came from the womb and he's not a grown-up yet. That's what the shoresh is. So if you made a vow, I'll have nothing to do with noladim, that would mean you could not eat mammals, you could not interrelate with people. These are all things that come from a womb. So la fuke mai, what is there left? Okay, la afuke dogim va'oifos. You could eat fish because the fish typically come from eggs, and you could eat fowl because this afternoon's turkey came from an egg. It did not come from a womb, and we'll stop there. What?
You found a grove, right? Turkey. $6.60.
I think I paid $6.69 or something.
It cost out for $3 and change a pound.
Oh, okay, but you have to drive 2 hours. Your time is worth something. Drove down?
I don't know for turkey. I just said Trader Joe had it for $2.60.
Kosher turkey? Yeah, but they were frozen. How much? I'm bringing it back to Aroma. I'm going today. Right now, I'm leaving. Goodbye. I'm going to. Are you serious? Really? Wow. Why didn't you tell me that yesterday, on Sunday?
$2.79 in Costco.
Yeah, so it's true. We just
Mordecai.
2 o'clock.
All right.
We'll learn after.
All right. And you're going to Mincha?
2, it depends on how I'm doing with the
Hey.
But my plan is to go to Mincha, subject to change.
Okay. Have a good day.
Yeah, I was from
Good day. Enjoy.
Say to you.
9:30.
How are you?
The fun thing that wasn't bad at all.
Well, that was something.
But when you were talking about being foreign, you said beer.
Get home, I'll
What about people?
Well,
I mean, eating people, having an offer from the Uber.
you can't. Oh, you could have. How do you have Hanor from an Uber?
That's the point.
You
The
can't.
Uber is not included. So
But
when
the
that,
wedding's
when
included.
Uber is born, then you can have an offer from him. Because he was not included in the net.
He was. And the Chachamim say any entity that derives from a womb is covered by your net. So an Uber is covered.
So
It's in a womb.
What you do with the real?
That was the previous thing. That it not yet.
Good morning. How are you?
It's not yet.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's the difference.